Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. And boy, has this video been a long time coming. Today, it's going to be the first time I've ever ridden the brand new BMW R1300GS. I'm well late to the party on this one, because I'm not one to hop off to Malaga to go to the launch to ride this bike on sunny, dry roads in its best possible conditions, but instead I come out on a damp December day in High Wycombe to see what the bike's like in the real world. So stick around and stay tuned. I'll let you know what I think of this bike, my first impressions review.
Okay, so what this first ride video isn't going to be is kind of like I normally do, where I take you for a ride on the local lanes and then I talk you through the spec, that sort of thing. What I want to do is something a little bit more in-depth, to try out a few different sorts of riding on the bike. So I will go on my local lanes and cover the usual sorts of things like comfort, how it handles, all that kind of stuff. But then I want to take it on a motorway, see what it's like at high speed. I want to take it through town, see what it's like in the urban environment. I'm going to want to ride it in wet, in the rain. I want to take it out at night, all that sort of thing, to build a sort of more of a rounded picture about what this bike really would be like to live with. I'll find out over the next months what it's like to live with, but just for my first ride I want to try out all those important aspects to give you sort of a flavour of what this bike is all about. I'm not going to be talking about detailed specifications and things like that. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm a bit late to the party as far as the new R1300GS is concerned, so there are plenty of other videos out there from great YouTubers like Moto Bob and 44 Teeth and others who all went on the sunny launch, and you can go through all the specs with them or look it up on the web if you're into the specs. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on the bike and see how she rides.
So let's start then, like I would in any of my normal first ride reviews, just riding around the local lanes here near Great Missenden, just to get a bit of a feel for what the bike's like. And having ridden quite a few bikes now in my time, you do quickly get a sort of a, not a sixth sense, but you quickly learn whether you like a bike or not within a few hundred yards of riding it. And well, probably no surprise to you, me being a GS fanboy, that within a few hundred yards of riding this, I could tell this was definitely a bike I was going to like riding. It feels very much like a GS, only different. I say it feels like a GS because the riding position itself is very familiar to me. My legs feel in the usual GS position, my arms are in the usual GS position, where I'm sat, you know, upright, with a slight lean forward, but nothing too much. It feels very familiar and very GS-y, so have no fear as far as that's concerned. First white van of the day, excellent. In terms of comfort on the bike, this seat feels absolutely fine to me. I need to do some long rides and some tours on the bike, which I intend to do to properly assess the comfort on the bike, but just on my familiar local back roads here, yeah, there's no issue with comfort. People that are saying the bike is not as comfortable as before, well, it's probably too early to say, because as I say, I haven't done a long tour on it, but it feels pretty darn comfortable to me, I have to say, so I personally have no qualms there. I'm just going to try the brakes out, because I'm curious to see what this new Telelever front suspension is like. It's got this Telelever Evo suspension. I don't exactly know technically what they've done. They've apparently improved it, but I've heard that it gives the bike more fork drive, so there's nothing behind us at the moment. Man, the brakes are incredible. And I have to say, that was fairly hard braking on these damp roads. And didn't really notice any fork drive, I have to say. Let's have another go once the traffic's gone. Nothing behind me still. Just really looking at fork dive here. Right, braking as hard as I can. There's a tiny bit, but it's absolutely marginal. Interesting, look, when I did that, the hazard lights came on to show drivers behind that I was braking hard. That's interesting. Fancy feature. So yeah, I was a little bit worried about fork dive being a thing on the new bike, something that I loved about the old bike. It's certainly something that Mrs. Fly, my regular passenger, appreciated. But again, do not worry about that. Fork dive, as far as I'm concerned, is not a thing on this bike. That's absolutely fine. Right, next up, what am I looking at? Stuff in the cockpit, controls, that sort of thing. Well, it's all very familiar if you've ridden a BMW, really any modern BMW. Then this will be completely familiar to you. The switch gears very familiar to even my old GS 1200. There are a few differences. It's keyless ride, start button is now on the handlebars there, that's fine, no problems there. Mode button's where it's always been, that's fine. Over on the other side is where there's a few changes. There's this button here, and there's this button here. So they're new to me. Don't know what they do yet. Well, they're selectors actually. This one here, which I think is referred to as the hamburger button, you can select things that you use often. So for example, at the moment I've got that sorted out so that I've got the heating on that rocker switch, so that I can turn the seat heating and the grip heating on just by using that switch, which is very useful actually, because unlike the previous GS's, this doesn't have a heat your grips button, because you've got that start button there now. So that's a bit of a downside. I'd rather have buttons for things like heating, but there we go, you can assign them to the hamburger switch, which is what I've done there. It's still a few more button presses than you would otherwise have, but there we go. So that's a bit of a difference. And then you've also got this selector button here that selects various functions that we didn't have before. And to be honest, I haven't got to grips with that yet. I don't know what that's going to be like. Anyway, let's come up this really bumpy, horrible road and just see what this suspension feels like. Well, this road, as you can see, is hideous. And the suspension just glides over it in the way that GS's always have done. And I have to say, this feels beautiful, the suspension. It's still early days for me and this bike, so you know, I've got to learn a bit about the settings for the suspension and what differences they make. But out of the box, as standard, the suspension feels absolutely beautiful on here. It's in that Goldilocks zone, not too firm, not too stiff, and on this particularly horrible bumpy road that I know well, yeah, the suspension feels absolutely great. Whilst we're on this little riding around the back lane segment, I forgot to mention this big thing that's glaring at us that says connectivity hub at the moment. This is the new BMW connected ride navigator device thing. It's basically the device that replaces the Nav 5 and Nav 6 before it, which used to be basically Garmin built GPSs. This one, as you can currently see, says connectivity hub, so it's all about connecting up to your phone and using some of the phone's features to get traffic updates and things like that. I haven't set this up yet. I'm going to make a separate video about how easy it is, or hard, I don't know yet because I haven't set it up, to actually connect your phone to the bike. I have a bit of a thing about devices or bikes that have to have phones connected to it, so that's immediately a bit of a black mark as far as I'm concerned. But that said, it doesn't just do connectivity options, it works as a sat nav as well. So phone, media and all that I'm not interested about really. Motorcycle, it's got some functions there, shows you what the bike's doing, tyre pressures, range, all that sort of thing, similar to what the old Navigator 5 used to do in that respect. And then if I go up, there we go, there's also a sat nav in there of sorts as well, although it looks quite basic. Again, haven't got to grips with it yet, so can't really comment on how good or bad that is, but that's what that device is all about there. Let's see if I can zoom out a bit. There we go. Okay, it looks a reasonable sat nav, and that's without connecting to my phone, so you've at least got basic sat nav functionality. Alright, let's see how the bike goes. And I think I have to say, wow, this is a quick bike. The previous reviews I've seen have all said that they've made the bike faster and more sprightly, and they absolutely have. This bike does not hang about now, I tell you. Not that the old GS's were particularly slow, but this thing is noticeably quicker. This is more now in the rocket category, I'd have, and that was just in third gear in normal road mode. In terms of riding, it is absolutely beautiful. It feels light and agile. It goes fast. It stops well. You know, what more can you ask of a bike? Those boffins at BMW really have done their thing on this. And well, if you, like me, when you first saw this new GS thought, nah, that's not for me, don't write it off until you've ridden it. As I say, I need to give this much more time for it to sink in and for me to sort of learn the shortcomings on the bike. But I have to say, from a riding point of view, this thing is lovely. So far, I can't fault it. It's hard to think of anything on the bike that is not good in terms of its ride. As I say, the suspension, the handling, the punch that it's got. I mean, these brakes on here, let's just try the rear, because I've not tried that. The rear is quite good, given their new brakes. I mean, this front brake, oh, it's absolutely excellent. Gearbox I haven't talked about. It's got the up and down quick shifter, which works fine, but again, it's got that BMW clunkiness about it. I don't know, there's something about the Boxer engine that just doesn't suit quick shifters. And the gearbox, even though BMW said they'd made it smoother, which they may well have done compared to other GS's, it still feels a bit crunchy to my foot, I have to say. Both up and down. You know, the bike under load, yeah, it's not the smoothest of quick shifters still, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, having said I can't find anything I don't like about the bike riding it, yeah, the gearbox is still a bit on the clunky side. So unlike other first ride reviews, I'm not going to go through the specs on the bike. There are plenty of more qualified people that have gone through the specs on other reviews of this bike. Needless to say, it's got everything and the specs are great. I'm more interested in how the bike makes you feel, and I have to say, it feels blooming fantastic. You don't want for any more power, any more go, you don't need any more stop. In terms of its weight and size, it feels great. It still feels like a GS. It just feels lighter and faster. And stops better. So, you know, you can't complain about that, can you? Okay, so as far as riding my local back lanes is concerned, on the new R1300GS, it's a big thumbs up from me. So far, nothing not to like. Still got a clunky gearbox, but it's better than it used to be.
So maybe the elephant in the room of the new R1300GS is the looks of the bike. So I guess it's worth us just talking about that briefly. I have touched on the looks lots in the past, so I won't go on and on about it. But the thing that divides opinion very much on this bike is, of course, the front end, and in particular this light, which we'll find out how that works at night time a little bit later. For me, it's this bit where the radar blanking plate is as well that I don't think looks so good. What I would say is, as so many other commentators have said as well, is that if you see the bike in the flesh, as it were, it actually looks a lot better than it does in the pictures, and I concur with that. I think it looks good. I quite like this gold and green paint scheme. It's basically, well, let's face it, BMW have copied it from my Royal Enfield, which is basically the same colour scheme. So I do like that basic colour scheme. I'm not sure, actually, about the blingy Option 719 bits and pieces on the Trumontana. That might just be a little bit over the top, but I do like the basic colour scheme of it. Certainly the fit and finish of it seems very good. Very resilient finishes on it. But yeah, so what I would say is the looks are starting to grow on me now. And it might just be that, you know, change, people are always anti-change, aren't they? So maybe over time, maybe, who knows, we'll grow to love that funny shaped light at the front.
So, talking about the funny shaped light at the front, what is the new GS like to ride at night? How does that light work, etc.? Well, we'll try it on full beam in a minute when we've hopefully lost this car, but just while we're waiting for that, just looking at the handlebars here, nothing is lit. None of the switchgear is lit on the GS still, which is a bit of an omission, I think, because plenty of adventure bikes are doing that now. The KTMs have been doing it for a while. The big Triumph Tiger does that. So there's no excuse really for BMW not to light the switchgear. So that's a bit of a shame. Right, that's why I've got a chance. I go on to full beam. There we go, and that turns night into day. What an absolutely amazing light. I don't think this has got the looking round the corner light on it, but frankly you don't need it, because that is just amazing. It's the first time I've ridden with the Osmo Action 4 at night, and I suspect it's no good at showing you exactly what the light's like. So let's dip, and there's full beam. So yeah, it might be like the GoPro and you can't really see a difference. So you have to take my word for it. The light is absolutely magnificent in terms of the amount of illumination it throws out in front of you. That is excellent. But yeah, what's not so good is the fact that the switchgear isn't lit. And then the other thing that's maybe not so good is with this new GPS connectivity hub thingy, that is quite bright. Now there may well be a setting somewhere that I can dim that down or turn that display off, but riding at night with that on all the time I think would be quite fatiguing. The normal TFT looks like it's dimmed down a little bit, and that's not bright and glary, but the GPS thing at the top, unfortunately, is quite bright and might get a bit distracting after a while, so need to look into that a bit more longer term. So As far as riding the big new GS at night, it's sort of a thumbs in the middle. The headlight itself, which causes so much consternation, is actually brilliant at lighting up the road ahead. But lack of lit switchgear and a glary hub thing, not so good. So one of the things the big new GS is definitely going to be used for is touring. And of course, if you're going to go touring, which often means, you know, riding your bike to a destination a long way away, then often it means you have to hit a motorway. So what's the bike like on faster roads, on motorways, that sort of thing? So I'm just popped out here, I'm on the M40 on a scuddy day. I've got the cruise control engaged, I'm behind this grey van, and of course it's got the radar cruise control. So at the moment it's just doing whatever the speed that is. I set it at about 74 miles an hour earlier. Now look, it's changing the speed as that van ahead changes. So we're doing 74 now. If he slows down, we'll slow down as we are now. That radar cruise control, absolutely brilliant. So that is a big thumbs up for faster roads if you cruise on motorways, things like that. What about stuff like wind protection? Well, I've got the windscreen in its uppermost position at the moment, and I have to say I'm in my infamous bubble of calm. There's absolutely, I'm only 5'8", so I'm not a tall guy, I must say that, but I can't feel any wind buffeting the top of my helmet, and hopefully you can hear on the microphone it's nice and quiet in here. So yeah, the wind protection on here at speed with that screen in its full uppermost position, absolutely brilliant. With it down lower, you can feel a bit of buffeting around your head. Well, that's fine, but again, if you're going to be doing cruising like this, then absolutely no problem at all. And of course, the other thing, if you defeat the cruise control, you decide you want to get a bit of a pace on, then this bike, with its new bigger engine and more power, it's just got oodles of power for cruising at high speed. I'm not going to cruise at high speed any further here. We'll leave that for the autobahns. But yeah, absolutely everything the motorcycle rider could want for a high-speed cruiser. It's comfortable, it's got great weather protection, the radar cruise control seems to work really well. Yeah, again, nothing not to like as far as the GS is concerned on faster roads. Big thumbs up for that from me. Okay, so what about riding the new GS in damp, wet and horrible conditions? Which it certainly is like that on the roads at the moment. It's not actually raining at the moment, but it's been raining all morning. I've just come out and typically it's stopped raining, but it is pretty wet under tyre. Well, the good news, of course, on the GS is it's got you absolutely covered as far as technology is concerned. You can stick it into rain mode, which I haven't actually done. I've got it in road mode at the moment. But rain mode's there. If you want it, it'll give you maximum traction control, maximum ABS, that sort of thing. So technology's got you covered on this bike, absolutely, for riding in the wet. And then the other thing that's important when it comes to riding in the wet, I guess, is tyre choice. Well, this particular bike is fitted with Torrance tyres. I can't actually remember the name of the tyre off the top of my head. I'll put it on the screen. But they're sort of badged as road adventure type tyres, so they don't make any pretensions at being off-roady. And I did have a look at a couple of reviews of these tyres, and they are known for their good wet performance. They've got very clever compounds in them, which means they're pretty grippy in the wet. And I have to say, although I've not been thrashing the bike round the corners on these slippery roads, they feel pretty good to me. I haven't had any iffy moments in the time that I've been riding the bike. When you brake, yeah, there's absolutely no chance of anything skidding. Combination of the ABS and those tyres, they do feel good. I've got plenty of confidence on this bike. It's feels nice and light and agile compared to previous GS's, and these tyres feel just great. Obviously I've got nothing to compare them with on this particular GS because it's the first time that I've ridden one of these bikes with any tyres, but yeah, I've got a good degree of faith in those tyres in the wet. Overall, I think for riding in wet conditions, GS is probably as good as it gets.
Right, should we just have a quick chat about a couple of things that I haven't seen on anybody else's video? First of all, sometimes people like to know what the key fob situation is. So this is keyless, but it comes with this fob shaped like that. It looks a bit like a, I don't know, something from outer space. And there is, of course, a key in there, because you will need that if you want to release and take the panniers off. Now, there's something else that I've not seen on anyone else's videos is people talking about the panniers. And of course, that's very important if you want to go traveling with the bike. So let's have a little bit of a chat about the panniers, and I'll show you in them as well. So the way these work, they're centrally locked. And at the moment, the bike is off, and I've got the key in my hand, so you can't get into the panniers. What you have to do is, right, so bring the bike alive, and as soon as I do that, I heard a clicking in the pannier there. You may not have heard it via the mic, but basically it unlocked the central locking on it. And then what you do is, here's a little clip here, you just pull that like that, and then there's a button here, quite difficult to do one-handed. If you press that in, and then the pannier opens up, and then if you look inside, it's quite spacious. You can see you've got a light in there where there's obviously an electrical connection for the central locking and so on, which remains to be seen whether that ends up actually being a bit of folly, because it's something else to go wrong potentially. But I like the idea of the light in there. And then these panniers themselves are the vario type, so they do expand. This looks like it's in the closed position, and I assume this is what expands it. So yeah, we wind that, and actually it's a very nice light action bringing that out, and there we go. That's the maximum extent of the expansion, and inside it looks like that. I suppose what I should really do is grab a helmet and see if I can fit one in. Hang on a second. Right, here we go, fairly standard sized array helmet that I had hanging up, and it looks like it will not fit in. Actually, no. It might be that you don't really want to damage your helmet trying to get it in, but I don't think anyone ever said you, oh, actually like that, look. Well, there you go. Then you can fit a helmet in. So in fact, turns out they are quite capacious. The one on the other side, much the same mechanism. Of course, a little bit more room in there because you haven't got the scoopy out bit with the exhaust as well. But that's basically how the panniers work. I haven't got a top box yet for the bike, but I am getting one as soon as they become available from BMW UK. Once I get that, I can also take the missus on the back, but I'll show you the top box when I get it.
Okay, riding around on the open road is all well and good and what we love to do as motorcycle enthusiasts, but what about if you have to actually use the bike to go to work, and that means riding the bike in the urban environment and around town? How does she handle, how does she fare in that situation? Well, here I am coming into a very murky and damp High Wycombe to see what she's like in that situation. I'm in second gear, just bring it down to first, coming up to these lights. Actually, it's because it's nice and agile, it's dead easy to filter on this. So if you want to do some filtering, it's a lot easier than the older bike was. You've still got a bit of width. I've got the panniers on here, so you've got to be cognizant of them, but certainly from a lightness and agility point of view, she's easy to filter. And as far as the fueling is concerned, when you're riding slowly, yeah, lovely. No jerkiness whatsoever. No worries at all with the fueling on here, as you'd expect. BMW know what they're doing by now, don't they? With regards to making decent running motorcycle engines, and the Boxer in particular, they've been developing for years and years, and this thing is now very, very refined indeed. Crawling along here in traffic at 14-15 miles an hour, first gear, no hunting, no juddering, no nothing like that. Fueling is beautiful. The other thing that the older outgoing GS1250 was good at was its big sort of muscular road presence, wasn't it? And this one's got a bit less of that, it has to be said, because it's not physically quite such a big and imposing bike. So the road presence isn't quite what the old GS had, which is a shame. But you know, you can't have big muscular road presence and light and agile, can you? It's one or the other. And I think I'd probably rather light and agile. But of course you can add to your road presence by, for example, adding some extra spotlights. I don't have them on this one, but I think if the bike was mine, I would invest probably in some crash bars, because I just think they look good as much as the protection they do, and some extra spotlights. And I think they're around about the 400 quid mark as an optional extra if you get them from a dealer. But yeah, other than the sort of reduced conspicuity over the old bike, everything else about it in town is better. Fueling's lovely, she's nice and light. Yeah, oh look, there's the blind spot monitoring for the first time. I mean, that is fantastic and a real boon in town. Love that. That is one safety feature that I absolutely love that radar gives you. Yeah, it seems to be working pretty well here. Like it. So it's a thumbs up for the new GS as far as around town riding is concerned. Alright, well, no Missenden Flyer in-depth review would be complete without a lugging about test, would it? So I'm coming into my local train station here, Great Missenden. I shall find one of my normal spots in the car park, and we're just going to see what it's like moving this bike around on and off the stand and so on, to simulate what it's like moving the bike around in the garage. Now for me, this is going to be particularly tricky, because this is the first time I've ridden the bike since I had surgery on my shoulder 3 weeks ago. I had bits of shoulder blade removed and other stuff done, so it's still pretty painful, and I don't really want to be shifting big bikes about. But in the interest of science and research, I'm going to give it a go. So let's see. If I moan a bit about, you know, pain and what have you, that's not the bike, that's just me because I had the surgery. Anyway, easy to find neutral. Let's kill the bike with that switch. There we go. And then that one to actually kill it. And then, oh look, the screen goes down. That's fun, isn't it? Your device will be locked in 15 seconds. Okay, side stand. It's got a little lug on the side stand, which takes a bit of finding, but again, you know, you get used to it, wouldn't you, after a while? There we go. And first thing I would say about the bike is it leans over quite a long way on that stand. So unlike the older GS that didn't lean quite so far, you've got a bit more of a push to get it off the stand in the first place. But anyway, let's see what the turning circle's like. I can already tell you actually that the turning circle is good. It was good on the old GS, just in case I can't get it around with my dodgy shoulder. It was good on the old GS, and this I think is possibly even better. It turns really tightly. So yeah, okay, so good grab handle as well to get hold of it. Getting it off the side stand, yeah, bit of a haul. And let's go round. Now, the bike is, let's go full lock now. So the bike is lighter than the old GS, but to be perfectly honest with you, I can't really tell that it's that much lighter when I'm shifting it around like this. There we go. Right, I'm not going to push it any further, it's going to upset my shoulder, but we went from halfway in the middle of that one round to the edge of that one. Now normally you do half of that into half of that. So that's a pretty tight turn if you ask me. So as far as the lugging about test is concerned, tight turning circle, leans over quite a way, doesn't actually feel that much lighter to me than my GS, but it is lighter, but it might just be because I'm weak at the moment. So although it feels light and agile when you're riding it, much more so than the outgoing bikes, it doesn't necessarily feel it when you're moving it around on the car park. Okay, how would I summarise the new R1300GS then, having had my first ride on the bike and ridden on a few different types of roads and in some different or some scuddy conditions like this? Well, as you will have gathered from my comments, I absolutely love it. I came into this whole new GS thing sort of wanting to not like it because the looks of it are so divisive, and I still do struggle with the looks of the bike. But I have to say, riding it, there's no doubt this machine is better in every way than the outgoing, all the GSs that have come before. The R1250, which I loved, my own R1200, this is just better in every way. I mean, it feels lighter, much more agile, it is a lot quicker, a lot faster than older bikes, and people say, well, you know, people that buy GSs aren't interested in speed and agility. No, I get that, they're not primarily after that, but let's face it, speed and agility are nice things to have, and this has it. But it doesn't sacrifice any of the good GS stuff that you know and love. So I was a little bit worried about fork dive on it. There isn't any fork dive on it, nothing I can perceive anyway. The brakes are stupendous on here and there's no fork dive, so you don't have to worry about that. I was worried it wasn't going to be quite as comfortable. I thought the suspension might be a bit stiff, but no, it's I've got this set in its sort of medium setting, if you like, and it's just, as I said, just in the Goldilocks zone. The comfort on the thing is absolutely lovely. It feels very GS-y in terms of the riding position, yet the suspension itself is even more glidey, even more soft and Rolls-Roycey than ever it was before. I was a bit worried that maybe the windscreen wouldn't work very well, but once I worked out how to get the thing adjusted upwards, I've got plenty of protection on here. It feels very much like a GS. It's still got that best-in-class TFT that BMW do so well. Jury's a little bit out on this gadget here, the new navigator thing. I'm going to do a separate video on that once I've had a bit more experience with it, and I'll get it connected up to my phone, see how easy that is to use. But even without it connected to my phone, there's lots it can do, so even that's more impressive than I thought it was going to be. I love the radar cruise control. The blind spot mirror thing just works beautifully well. The only thing that's still a bit rubbish on it is the clunky quick shifter. It's probably the best GS quick shifter I've used, but it's just not the same as riding on somebody else's four-cylinder bike, for example, which would be silky smooth. This one you definitely wouldn't describe as silky smooth. That's the only thing really that I can find that I don't like about it in terms of its riding. Well, I suppose the other thing is the way that you control some of the there's so much tinkering you can do on here now, so much electronics. that it's a bit of a faff, for example, to turn the heated grips on and off and what have you. I've assigned it to that button most of the time, but if you want to change things like the screen up and down a bit, for example, the only way I've found out so far to do that is to press the hamburger button, which takes you to all these features. You then select what you want to go, and in this case I want to go to windscreen. Look, I can then use the whiz wheel, he says. In fact, let's I can't use the whiz wheel in this case. Let's try the up and down. There we go. Just the up and downy buttons adjust the screen now while I've got windscreen selected. Look, so there we go. I'm going to leave it in the up position because it seems to do the best job of wind protection, not surprisingly there. But if I then want to change the heated grips, I have to use the whiz wheel to go to heating, select OK, and now I can change the heated grips and the seat. In fact, the heated grips are off, so I'm going to turn those on a bit. So again, I have to use the whiz wheel. I'm in heating. It's saying hold. Come on, heating. Let's go. There we go. Press the off button, the up button. There we go. Now I'm on 3. I don't want it on 3. I want it on 2. There we go. So got there and oh, I've accidentally turned the heated seat off in do so. So that is a bit of a faff, I have to say. If you're going to have a lot of features, then I suppose there's going to be, you know, you've got to deal with them somehow. You can't have buttons for all those things, or you'll be looking at Africa Twin sort of nightmares. So I don't like that control mechanism, I have to say. I do prefer buttons. Things like the screen and the heat, I would like to see buttons. The rest you could probably embed in there. So yeah, having said, there's nothing I can find about riding the bike I don't like. The only thing really is that the way you control that interface. Maybe it's just a matter of me getting used to it, but all the things that really matter, how the bike goes, feels, stops, handles, are just absolutely top notch. The BMW was already, as far as I'm concerned, the ultimate all-round motorcycle. Well, it's just got better as being the ultimate all-round motorcycle.
Okay, so there we have it. That's my sort of first impressions review of this, let's face it, magnificent new motorcycle from BMW, the R1300GS. You can tell I'm already quite a fan, even though I'm not too sold on the looks of it. It rides absolutely beautifully. Loads more videos coming up on the channel about the bike. I intend to do something specifically about the new navigator device, the connected ride sat-nav GPS thing. I'm going to make a video on that. I'm going to make a video on riding with a pillion. As soon as I get that top box sorted out, we'll go out for a ride with the missus on the back and get her view on what the comfort's like and what it's like to ride compared to previous GS's. My missus has got a lot of experience of riding on the back of the outgoing GS. I'm going to make a video or two on going on tour with the bike, and basically anything that you want me to cover, stick anything in the comments below and I'll make sure and cover them in those future videos. So if you are interested in this bike, make sure you hit the subscribe button. There'll be loads more to come. All right, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Mr. Flyer. Cheerio.
Hey kids, we're the Missing the Flyers.
Well done, BMW. Bravo. You've taken an already brilliant bike and you've made it even better. Fantastic.